Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is on the edge of collapse. One of the most important waterways in the world is turning into a potential flashpoint. One wrong move here could disrupt global oil supply within hours. And in the middle of this tension, Iranian fast attack boats are already moving across key choke points. Missile-capable drones are on standby. Coastal defenses are active. But the real concern for intelligence agencies isn't what's visible in the water. It's what's moving in the shadows beyond the region. Because a silent deployment has already begun. AH-64 Apache attack helicopters operating just outside the theater. And this changes everything. Fast attack boats slice through the water at 40 knots. Drone launchers are concealed along the coastline. Anti-ship missiles sit buried inside reinforced mountain bunkers carved into rock. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps calls this their trap, their endgame, their leverage over the global economy. Because if the strait is closed, oil markets explode, shipping collapses, and nations panic within hours. For decades, that threat alone was enough. Until now. Because what Iran didn't anticipate wasn't a carrier strike group. It wasn't destroyers. It wasn't a full-scale invasion. It was something far more precise, far more unpredictable. U.S. AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, flying low, silent, weapons armed. And what happens next turns the Strait of Hormuz into a battlefield no one can control. Rewind 72 hours, March 28th, 2026. Inside a dimly lit operations room, intelligence analysts are tracking something unusual. Satellite feeds show Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval units repositioning across key choke points in the strait. Not random patrols. This is coordinated. Dozens of fast attack boats moving into pre-planned positions. Zulfahar-class vessels, small, fast, deadly, each equipped with anti-ship cruise missiles, cheap platforms, carrying weapons capable of crippling billion-dollar warships. And that's the strategy, swarm tactics. Instead of matching the U.S. Navy ship for ship, Iran overwhelms with numbers, speed, chaos, 30, 40, 50 boats attacking from multiple angles. Even the most advanced destroyer struggles when threats come from everywhere at once. On paper, it's brilliant. In reality, it's about to become a death sentence. U.S. Central Command doesn't wait. No long deliberation, no political delay. Within hours, orders are executed. At a forward airbase in the United Arab Emirates, 4 AH-64E Apache Guardians sit ready on the tarmac. Rotors still, engines cold, but not for long. Pilots sprint toward their aircraft, ground crews clear the area, systems power up, displays flicker to life. Each Apache is loaded for war. 16 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles per aircraft, 64 precision-guided weapons, airborne within minutes. But these aren't the Hellfires of the past. No continuous laser guidance, no need to stay exposed. These are radar-guided. Fire and forget. Lock, launch, move. By the time the target realizes it's under attack, it's already too late. 0400 hours. The sky is black. The sea below, darker. 4 Apaches lift off, one by one, disappearing into the night. They fly low, extremely low, just above the surface of the water. So low that rotor wash disturbs the waves beneath them. This isn't just flying. This is controlled risk. At this altitude, radar struggles. Detection windows shrink. Reaction time disappears. Inside the cockpit, everything is green. Night vision, infrared overlays, targeting systems scanning constantly. Every heat signature, every movement, every anomaly. The ocean isn't empty, it's alive with data. Minutes later, the system picks it up. 12 contacts, moving fast, tight formation, 40 knots, heading directly toward a cluster of civilian oil tankers waiting for transit clearance. This is it. The blockade has begun. Inside the lead Apache, the pilot locks in. Targets begin to populate across the display. 1, 2, 3, up to 12. Each tagged, each tracked, each vulnerable. Weapon status, ready. Authorization comes through, weapons free. No hesitation, no countdown, just action. 6 targets selected, 6 Hellfire missiles armed, each one assigned, each one locked. The first missile drops from the wing, a split second of silence. Then ignition. The rocket motor kicks in. The missile surges forward, breaking the sound barrier in seconds. 7 seconds later, impact. The lead Iranian boat disappears in a violent explosion. A fireball erupts across the water, lighting up the night like daylight. No warning, no defense, no chance. Second missile, impact. Third, fourth, boom, boom, boom. It happens so fast, the crews on board those boats don't even understand what's happening. No radio calls, no defensive maneuvers, just destruction. Panic spreads instantly. The remaining boats break formation, zigzagging wildly, trying to escape, trying to survive. But speed doesn't matter now. You can't outrun a missile that's already locked onto you. The Apaches reposition. Smooth, efficient, no wasted movement. New targets acquired, second volley launched. 6 more missiles, 6 more impacts. Within moments, 12 boats, gone. Not damaged, not disabled, gone. Back on the Iranian coastline, chaos. Commanders shouting over radio channels, units scrambling to respond. Anti-aircraft systems activated, surface-to-air missiles launched blindly into the darkness. But there's nothing to hit, because the Apaches are already gone. Low altitude, high speed, silent movement. They vanish as quickly as they appeared, leaving behind only burning wreckage floating in the water. For the first time in years, the Iranian strategy shows its weakness, not against ships, not against fleets, but against something it wasn't designed to counter, an enemy that doesn't stay visible, doesn't stay in range, and doesn't miss. And this is just the beginning. Dawn breaks over the Strait of Hormuz, but this isn't a normal sunrise. Smoke still hangs over the water, burning debris drifts across the surface, and somewhere beneath the waves, 12 Iranian fast attack boats now rest at the bottom of the Gulf, gone in minutes. On the Iranian side, nothing makes sense. Radio channels are flooded, conflicting reports, multiple explosions, unknown aircraft, no visual contact. Commanders demand answers, but no one has them, because the enemy they're facing never stayed long enough to be seen. But the mission isn't over, not even close, because Iran doesn't rely on just one tactic, and what comes next is the real test. Within hours, new intelligence comes in, intercepted communications, movement along the coastline. Something bigger is being prepared. Then it appears, not on radar at first, not visually, but as a pattern, a shift, a swarm. 30 separate launch signatures lighting up across multiple coastal positions. Iran has escalated. Shahed-class loitering munitions, kamikaze drones, cheap, simple, deadly in numbers. This is the fallback strategy. If boats fail, drones overwhelm. No need for precision, just volume. Flood the airspace, force defenses to break, let even a few slip through, and the damage is done. And this time, they're not aiming blindly. Their target? A convoy of commercial oil tankers preparing to pass through the strait. Slow, massive, vulnerable. If even one drone hits, it's not just damage, it's global panic. 30 drones, low altitude, slow approach, spread across multiple vectors. For most defense systems, this is a nightmare. too many targets, too many angles, too little time, but the Apaches are already moving. 15 miles out, sensors light up. The longbow radar activates, mounted above the rotor, scanning beyond terrain. Beyond line of sight, targets begin appearing on screen. 1, 5, 10, 20, 30. Every drone tracked, every movement predicted, every path calculated. Inside the cockpit, there's no panic, no confusion, just clarity. The system prioritizes threats automatically. Closest targets first, fastest approach vectors flagged. Engagement solutions generated in seconds. The pilot doesn't need to search. The system hands him the battlefield. And now, it's time to engage. Distance, 2,000 meters. Weapons, hot. The first Apache opens fire. The M230 chain gun roars to life. 30mm rounds tear through the air. Tracers streak forward like lines of fire. The first drone disappears mid-air. Then another. Then 3 more. There's no explosion at first. Just sudden silence, where a drone used to be. Then debris, flames, fragments falling into the sea. The gun doesn't stop. It doesn't hesitate. Controlled bursts, precise tracking. The pilot isn't aiming manually. He's looking. And the gun follows. Left, right, up, down. Every movement translates into fire. Within seconds, the sky begins to clear. 10 drones, gone. But the swarm adapts. Remaining drones split formation. Some drop lower, some climb. Some change direction entirely. They're trying to confuse tracking systems, trying to break the engagement pattern. For older systems, it might work, but not here. The second Apache enters the fight. Now 2 platforms, 2 targeting systems, 2 streams of fire, cross angles, overlapping fields of engagement, no escape routes. The remaining drones are hunted down one by one. 15 more fall within the next minute. The last few attempt a final push. Low altitude, maximum speed, direct line toward the tanker convoy. Too late. A Hellfire missile launches. Not for a boat this time, but for a drone cluster. Airburst, a flash in the sky, followed by fragments scattering in all directions. Silence. Complete silence. 30 drones launched. 30 drones destroyed. Total engagement time, less than 5 minutes, and not a single one reaches its target. Back on the Iranian coast, shock turns into something else. Fear. Because now they understand. This isn't luck. This isn't chance. This is control. Every move they make is being watched, tracked, countered, destroyed. And yet, they try again. Because they have one last option, the one system they've invested in for decades. Coastal missile batteries, hidden inside reinforced bunkers, buried into cliffs overlooking the strait. These aren't small weapons. C-802 anti-ship cruise missiles, long-range, heavy warheads, capable of crippling large naval vessels. Unlike boats, unlike drones, these can strike from distance, without warning, and they don't need to get close. If these launch successfully, everything changes. Shipping halts, naval forces pull back, the strait becomes a danger zone again. So they prepare. Launch crews move into position, missiles raised, targeting systems activated. For a brief moment, it looks like Iran might regain control, but they're already too late, because this time, the Apaches aren't reacting, they're hunting. High above, an MQ-9 Reaper drone circles silently, watching, recording, marking targets. Laser designators lock onto bunker positions, coordinates transmitted instantly. Miles away, 2 Apaches hover behind a ridgeline, hidden, invisible. They rise just enough to see. Targets acquired, missiles armed. No warning. 3 Hellfires launch in sequence. They arc over the terrain, locking onto their targets mid-flight. Seconds later, impact. The first bunker collapses inward. Explosion contained, then amplified. Stored munitions ignite. Secondary blasts ripple through the structure. Second missile, direct hit. Concrete shatters. Flames erupt outward. Third, impact. Detonation. The entire hillside lights up. From a distance, it looks like the earth itself is exploding. Inside those bunkers, everything is gone. Missiles, equipment, crew, neutralized. Iran's last line of defense, erased in under 60 seconds. And just like before, the Apaches disappear. No pursuit, no retaliation, just silence. By mid-morning, the reality becomes impossible to ignore. Every tactic Iran deployed has failed. Swarm boats, destroyed. Drone attacks, eliminated. Missile systems, neutralized. And the worst part? They never even got a clean shot. Not one successful strike. Not one confirmed hit. For the first time, the Strait of Hormuz doesn't feel like a battlefield. It feels like something else entirely, a hunting ground. And Iran is no longer the hunter. By noon, the Strait of Hormuz is quiet, not peaceful. Quiet in a way that feels unnatural, like the ocean itself is holding its breath. No fast boats, no drone activity, no missile launches, no radio chatter, just burning wreckage drifting across international waters. And for the first time in years, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps is silent, completely silent. Inside command centers across the coast, screens flicker with incomplete data. Radar feeds show nothing but empty sea. Interception systems return no targets. Drones report no movement. It doesn't make sense. Because just hours ago, this was a coordinated operation, a blockade in motion, a show of force. Now, nothing. Commanders demand updates. Operators recheck systems. Analysts rerun satellite feeds. But the conclusion keeps repeating itself. Everything that moved has stopped moving. Everything that was deployed has been destroyed. And everything that was supposed to control the strait no longer exists in a functional state. Somewhere along the coastline, a senior IRGC officer stares at a live feed. He doesn't speak, doesn't move, just watches the water. Where once there was strategy, now there is silence. And that silence is louder than any explosion. Because what happened here wasn't just a tactical defeat. It was something deeper. It was exposure. Iran's entire asymmetric doctrine was built on one assumption: that numbers overwhelm technology, that chaos beats coordination, that cost imbalance creates advantage. Cheap boats versus expensive ships, cheap drones versus advanced defense systems, missiles hidden in terrain versus visible fleets. But none of it worked, because every layer of that strategy depended on one thing: time. Time to react, time to overwhelm, time to succeed through attrition. And they never got it, not even once. Because every move was detected early, every attack was tracked in real time, and every system they deployed was countered before it could matter. On the open ocean, the last burning hull finally sinks beneath the waves. No survivors broadcast, no distress signal, no propaganda footage, just silence. And in that silence, a new reality begins to settle. The Strait of Hormuz is open. Tankers begin moving again, slowly at first, then in full convoy formation. Global shipping resumes. Insurance markets stabilize. Oil prices begin to settle. The world exhales. But inside military circles, no one is celebrating, because they understand what just happened. This wasn't just a successful operation. It was a demonstration, a message, that control of critical waterways no longer depends on geography. It depends on detection, integration, and reaction speed. And in this environment, even the most carefully designed asymmetric strategy can collapse in minutes. Satellite imagery later confirms everything. Burned out hulls, destroyed launch sites, collapsed coastal positions. No intact IRGC naval formation remains in the operational zone. And then comes the official statement. Short, cold, carefully worded. Freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz has been restored. No mention of details, no mention of systems, no mention of losses. But everyone already understands what it means. And in Tehran, the response is not anger, not retaliation, not escalation. It is calculation. Because now, they know something they didn't fully accept before. Conventional escalation does not guarantee control, and asymmetric warfare does not guarantee survival, especially not against a system that sees everything before it happens. Meanwhile, the Apache crews are already gone, relocated, refueled, ready for the next mission. Because this wasn't a one-time strike. It was a proof of concept, a reminder that presence alone is a weapon. And now, the region understands something else. The Apaches are not just attack platforms. They are deterrents. Constant, invisible, unpredictable. And that changes everything. Days later, satellite scans still show increased IRGC activity inland, drone production lines running overtime, missile units repositioning deeper underground. Not because they are preparing to win, but because they are preparing not to lose again. And that is the real outcome of this engagement. Not destruction, not victory, but psychological reset. Because once a force proves it can strike anywhere, at any time, without warning, the battlefield is no longer physical. It becomes mental. And no radar system, no missile battery, no fast attack boat can protect against that level of uncertainty. Final shot. The Strait of Hormuz at night. Calm water. Distant tanker lights moving slowly through the channel. Stars reflected on the surface. No explosions. No movement. No chaos. Just quiet control of one of the most important waterways on Earth. And somewhere far beyond the horizon, the Apaches are still out there, not seen, not heard, but always present, watching, waiting, ready. Because in modern warfare, the most powerful weapon is not firepower, it is control of time. And tonight, time belongs to them.